everyone, and welcome to a very special live episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. This week, we are thrilled to interview Eddie Wilcoxen. Eddie Wilcoxen is a retired radio broadcaster who worked in Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, and Ohio before settling in for a 30-year career in Altus, Oklahoma. He was selected by Governor Brad Henry as Oklahoma Poet Laureate for 2011 and 2012, and Eddie traveled the state and made more than 100 appearances during his term, sharing his love of poetry and promoting support of the arts. In his original stories, he weaves historical facts, personal experiences, humor, and vivid imagery to promote understanding and respect. His ability to craft tales that not only enchant audiences, but also carry invaluable lessons about human nature have garnered him widespread acclaim. The humor and subtle grace that infuse Wilcoxen's work enable his broad and modern appeal and ensures that people of all ages will be entertained and heartened by his performance. Eddie grew up south of Dodge City, Kansas, as one of 6 boys of Kenneth and Ruby Wilcoxen. After his father drowned trying to rescue cattle in a flash flood, Kenneth ran the family farming operation from the time he was only 13, graduating high school at 16. Eddie had a difficult childhood on the farm because he had polio, severe asthma, and other undetermined illnesses that resulted in numerous surgeries. By the time he was 10 years old, Eddie had lived half of his life in hospitals. After graduating from Dodge City Community College in 1969, Eddie briefly attended Kansas University before transferring to the Radio Engineering Institute of Kansas City, where he earned his first phone engineering license from the FCC and began his radio career. Never one to be held back by limitations, despite partial paralysis caused by polio, he went on to study and become a master instructor of the martial arts. Eddie became a 3-time national karate champion and was chosen to carry the Olympic torch on its journey to Atlanta for the 1996 Olympics. At the same time, Eddie was active in the community and throughout southwest Oklahoma and North Texas. He appeared at dozens of schools and civic clubs, promoting the value of following your dreams and the importance of education. Eddie served as president of the Altus Kiwanis Club and was responsible for establishing the world's largest youth club associated with Kiwanis International. He was president of the local United Way campaign and chosen as Grand Marshal for the local Christmas parade. Through all of this, Eddie was writing poetry, continuing a practice that had started in his early teens. His love of poetry dates back to those early hospital years when his mother would read poetry to him almost every day. Eddie has written a collection of poems for each of the last 2 Oklahoma Chautauquas and has published 12 books of poetry, including Oklahoma Proud, Reflections of a Wandering Mind, and Faith, Hope, and Poetry. He has also started a YouTube channel, Eddie's Stuff, featuring videos of his original poetry. His books are available online through Amazon. Eddie and his wife Joan served as co-presidents of the Poetry Society of Oklahoma for 2014 and 2015. The Poetry Society of Oklahoma was established in 1934 as the foremost Oklahoma organization to strengthen and expand the place of poetry in society at large versus strictly academic settings. We are thrilled to have Eddie with us this week, who will be talking about his experiences and sharing some of his poems. So without further ado, Mr. Eddie Wilcoxen.
Well, hello there.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. You got to be gentle here. Got to ask me the easy questions.
I promise.
Okay.
I'll start you with a real easy one.
All right.
How did you get into poetry?
I've been into poetry for as long as I can remember. I've written poetry, I think, since I could write.
Mm-hmm.
But I was helped because when I was younger, I was sick and in the hospital a lot. I mean, years I was in the hospital. And so I got to spend a lot of time with my mom, and she loved poetry. So she would read poetry to me from some of the first stuff I ever heard. And
Okay.
it was just kind of a natural evolution.
Okay. And that is how all good writers begin, I think, is a coming from a love of having it read or reading it.
Yes, in fact, it's really interesting. I say I wrote poetry, but it was a very private thing. I wrote poetry that was strictly for me because I love to shape the language and shape the words. But when
Mm-hmm.
I got done with the shaping, I threw them away. I never saved them.
Really?
Yeah, and if it hadn't been for Joan, I did that for I don't know how many years, 30, 40 years. And so I would share them with Joan, and she would say, "Oh, you should say that one." And I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then I wouldn't. But I
Mm-hmm.
found out later she was following behind me and gathering them up. And
Oh.
so it reached a point where she had a pretty good collection of them. And I reached the point where I could actually share a poem publicly. I, and that's funny because I was in radio broadcasting. I did television appearances. I was very used to being in public,
Mm-hmm.
but the poetry was a different thing. It was strictly private, totally. But I had a friend who sent me a thing called The Eagle and the Wolf. And it was a story about the goodness and the badness inside each of us and how that worked. And it was a really great story, but I thought, what? It could be written better. And so I turned it into a poem.
Okay.
And it happened to be that just after I did that, I was doing an appearance before the retired educators of Jackson County down in Altus, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And they're a very nice group. And I thought, now or never. And so I actually read that poem, and their reaction was so favorable and so encouraging that it allowed me to start breaking that paradigm of, oh, it's totally private, and step out and start sharing it. And the more I shared it, the more positive the response was. And one thing leads to another. And here we are on down the road.
Here we are. And there's nothing quite like that rush of your first in-person reading.
Yeah, in fact, here's something I think is really important for everybody to know.
Mm-hmm.
Beginnings are so fragile. I promise you, I would still be writing poetry today, but no one would have ever seen it again if those people had not been encouraging and supportive. If they had been negative, it would have died right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all need to remember that when we're hearing somebody else's poetry, that it's coming from a place of importance to them. And we need to be a lot more encouragers than criticizers.
I
I
agree.
feel I feel real strongly about that because you can get into some particular corners of poetry where they're not very encouraging.
Right.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, I've experienced a little bit of that.
Yeah,
And poetry is such a undervalued art that it doesn't make sense for us to be at each other's throats about it.
it
Like,
does not. It does not.
no, I fully agree that we do need to be encouragers as opposed to, and I mean, you can have feedback and you can be like, well, this word might make it a little more meaningful. This word might make it a little more, flow a little bit better. But there's a difference between constructive criticism and just straight criticism.
There is a difference. It's an interesting line that I ended up with. I think because it had been so private for so long, I stepped out to share it, but I share it in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Every word is exactly where I wanted that word, and it's wonderful if somebody else would have used a different word, but I'm not interested in that. It was like I wanted it, and this is what I'm presenting. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, here's the recipe. You can have this recipe and enjoy this food, or you can take it home and change it, but don't change it while I'm there.
Right.
I, I,
Yeah, what you wrote is what you wrote, is what you wanted to write.
yes, in fact, I had never been in a poetry contest before, and I was encouraged by people who do contests that I should do that. Wow, okay, because they were getting great satisfaction out of it and writing some wonderful stuff through
Hmm.
the Poetry Society of Oklahoma. And so I submitted a couple of poems, and I was surprised when I got one back that had been graded like I was in school with red circles and words changed. And I was like, oh, oh, this is not a process that works for me.
Yeah.
But a lot of people find it really, really satisfying. Like I said, the Poetry Society people, most of them are interested in the contest, and they do a great job of taking a topic and writing something and doing it. I was asked to be a judge. I can't judge poetry.
Hmm.
I'm not prepared to do that. I don't want to be the voice that says, oh, well, that didn't meet some level of whatever it's supposed to be.
Right.
I, I just let me encourage, and we'll leave the rest of that to others.
So that's not very encouraging when you have to judge one above the other.
Yeah.
So I can see where that would not give you the satisfaction. So let's talk a little bit about your role as the poet laureate. What was your favorite part about that?
Just appearing and sharing with people all over the state of Oklahoma, and it gives you a forum. As you said, poetry is a very niche thing. It's not something that well, I'll tell you a story. I was at a storytelling thing years ago, and the main speaker was introduced as a very, here he is, tonight stuff, a famous storyteller, and he walked out on stage and he just looked at everybody, and he just stood there and looked at everybody for like a whole minute, and finally he said, boy, that's an oxymoron, famous storyteller. Well, it's kind of that way for poetry. When you get a chance to share it with people, they find out that there is a lot that they like and they enjoy about it, but they haven't been introduced to it in an entertaining way. They were introduced to it into a class, and you're going to read this in a class because you have to, and you're going to tell me what it's about, and I'm going to grade you on whether you understood what it's about or not, and that's not really conducive to creating a love of the art.
Right. So you believe that the academic side of poetry is more or less harmful to the creative side of poetry.
Well, it depends. Hang on a second. Oh, what did I do with it? Ah, all right. The academic side of poetry.
Okay.
I have had this since I was in the fifth grade. And the reason I've had this since I was in the fifth grade, it has wonderful poems that I enjoyed. But the way we did this when I was in school is I had to read them. No one made me judge that one, which one, what is that about? They just said, hey, read your book. And
Yeah.
it's got tremendous stuff. So no, I'm not opposed to academic side of poetry, although it's not really what I do,
Hmm.
because mine is more like bird song. Truthfully, it just happens. It There it is, and go, guys. I hope you like that bird song, but if you didn't, there's nothing I can do about it. I actually did at one point, about the time that I became poet laureate for the state. I thought, well, in order to do this properly, I probably should understand more of the specific rules of poetry.
Okay.
And I tried that for a while, and I found it getting in the way like I said, mine is it just comes. I sit down with a piece of paper, and I may have a title, I may have a thought, and it starts, and I'm watching the muse write it. It's like, I wonder how this is going to turn out. And I found myself instead thinking about a rule, and so I went, no, that's not going to work. It's a different process. In fact, I have to, I have to write it
You
down.
can't write birdsong if you have to contain it within the rules and regulations.
Yeah, it's hard. See, I have to write it down, longhand, piece of paper, ink and pen. That's it, it's funny. That's the only way it works. I tried recording it. It didn't flow. Blank piece of paper, pen, we're ready to go.
Ready to go. Plus, you can take that anywhere. You don't have to worry about the batteries failing.
That's true.
Straight.
Well, you know, what J.K. Rowling said that the only way she could write was with a big chief tablet, and that she was writing one night, and everything's going really good, and she turns a page and she's out of her big chief tablet. She said, "Have you ever tried to buy a big chief tablet at 2 a.m. in London? It's very hard."
I can imagine.
But she managed to find one and keep writing. So everybody has their own little way to do it.
Their own little rituals. Now, is the pen and paper your only ritual, or do you have other things you have to do before you can get the poem out?
No, that is pretty much it. Find a quiet spot, and like I said, sometimes I have a thought starter. Sometimes it's whatever comes, and I don't know anybody else, but I've written many thousands of poems, but I have a stack that thick of poems that started that didn't finish. So, you know, sometimes they just die on the vine. It doesn't happen. And I save all those. And every once in a while, I will go back and find one, and it will, but it's so rare. I sometimes think I'd be better off if I just let all those go. But
yeah, but they're like friends. You can't just abandon them in their time of need. You have to keep them around. You have to fulfill them someday. I also have, I like to call it my little graveyard of half finished things. Every once in a while one will rise from the grave, but like you said, it's rare, and it has to, all the stars have to align just right.
See it. You know, in the writing process, I've talked to poets who talk about how difficult it is to reach inside and pull out the emotion. And I've even had poets explain that in order to be a good poet, you have to be basically miserable. And I must say, that's not the way it is for me. The time writing, even if I'm writing a sad poem, the time itself is some of the most wonderful time that I have in my life, because working in radio for all those years, you get really used to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 3-minute song, and you know the passage of time, and you know it very precisely. And I can still do that most of the time. But when I write, I step outside of time. Time is gone, and I'll be writing, and you look up, and it's an hour, it's an hour and a half, it's 2 hours, and you go, oh, wow, it's really the only time that I'm in that, and it's enjoyable. I mean, it's a real special time. So for me, the process of writing is really rewarding, and always has been. And it's nice now that I do get to share it with people through all the books that I've written. But that process didn't change. It was always worth doing. And that's the thing I would tell people. People talk about, I write poetry, but it's not very good. One of the things I had up in my office for years is the woods would be very silent if only the best birds sang. And I love that.
Like that.
Yeah, everybody, you have a voice. If you have that even the tiniest notion that you have a voice that you need to express, for goodness sakes, go ahead and do it, and don't apologize for it. Don't, oh, it wouldn't be. That is totally unnecessary and really self-defeating. Just go for it. And my opinion is all poetry is good. It's just I like some of it better than others.
Right.
I'm not here to say, oh, well, that's no good. And I think we all ought to be real careful about that. That, hey, it may not be my cup of tea, but if it fulfills a need in that person who wrote it, and if even better, if it actually reaches beyond that to an audience in any way, then it was a really positive thing. Pretty simple.
I agree. Yeah, it is. And it's a lot of poets, I think, are very similar to how you were with, I'm going to write this, but I'm not going to let anybody see it. And it takes a lot to get people to step out of, and even I was like that for a long time when I first started writing poetry. The only person who ever read it was my mom, and she's kind of biased, so she's going to tell me it's good, But
that's what everybody needs. Somebody with unwavering support. Because especially in beginnings, you don't really need criticism. You just need encouragement. Criticism can come later. I used to work with a guy named Altus Day, and he would talk about ideas. And he said, in the birth of an idea, there is nothing but positive. There's plenty of time later on to figure out the difficulties with that idea, but don't kill it before it's time. And that's what we all tend to do. Right away, you start looking, this doesn't do that, and and that might not be. And it's not necessary. It'll kill itself later on if need be, but give it a chance to live and breathe.
I really like that, and I think that is some great advice, because like you said about the fragile beginnings, if we kill the beginning of something before it even has a chance to see the light of day, then like we might be missing out on the best opportunities of our life.
I wrote a poem called 400 Times, and I don't have it in front of me, but there was research done that said when we are small children, we laugh and giggle and are happy, demonstrably happy, 400 times a day. But by the time we are 35, we average 15 times a day of expressing ourselves in terms of happiness, laughter.
That's a decline.
So you go, what happens? Well, same thing. If you ask a group of kindergarten kids, how many of you can sing? Every hand goes up. They can all sing. Oh, yes. Whatever you want us to sing, we'll do it. You ask a group of graduating from college graduate, how many of you can sing? And maybe one hand in 20. Just a smattering of hands. Everybody else has been convinced, beaten down, whatever, that they can't sing. And it's just kind of unfortunate that we're that hard on things. And I guess a certain amount of it's necessary. We should have some standards as far as professional singing, but everybody should feel like
they can sing.
Yeah, it's like you can do something.
It's like sing in the kitchen, sing in the shower. You don't have to be a professional.
That's it. You told me that I could do some poetry. I want to do something. We're talking about this, about poetry and where it comes from.
Yeah,
And I want to share a couple with you that have to do with my childhood. And
absolutely.
a lot of what I write is just I stop and I remember a situation that I was in, and a poem comes out of that. And this is about my mom.
All right.
When I was a kid, I played hard at basketball. I really wasn't good. I was far from being tall, but I could make a layup and I hustled down the court. I played that game with heart. I really was that sort, but I was so very tiny that a free throw was too long. I lacked the strength to throw that far, and often they'd go wrong. And I remember this one game. It's late, score was close, and I got fouled. And I knew we needed those points the most. It was 1-1 at the free throw line. Make one and get another. And I was focused and I was ready, except I hadn't factored mother. See, my mom went to every game, to each event. She knew a mom's job when she saw it, duty heaven sent. So as the pressure mounted and quiet reigned supreme, I pictured myself successful and in a winner's dream. I bent my knees. I began to shoot. I knew that I was ready. And suddenly a shout shattered all my preparation. It was my mom with, "You can do it, Eddie!" Well, needless to say, I was so embarrassed I missed that crucial shot, and I could have dropped straight through the floor right there on the spot. But now, all these years later, I can't recall one score. I don't remember how many we won or lost. It doesn't matter anymore. But I do remember Mom, and I know she was always there, wanting only the best for me. I know she truly cared. And still, sometimes when things are rocky or some task is hard to do, I can hear my mom with, "You can do it, Eddie." And it takes me right on through.
I
Yeah,
love that so much.
at the time, that was one of the worst moments of my life. But then later on, you go, "That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Mom
It's
was there for me."
interesting the things that stick with you when you don't think they will.
It is. Now, this is a true story about a Boy Scout trip. We were on a Boy Scout trip to Bluff Creek and swimming and splashing about when Hal stopped everything with this shrieking, banshee shout. Oh, we just stared in wonder. Wild-eyed Hal jumped up and down, screaming in the water so loud that they could probably hear him back in town. And he was waving his arms around like a scarecrow in the wind. We could not believe the hopped-up state this boy was in. And then, to our amazement, he started pulling off his swimsuit. He pulled those trunks down ankle high. He continued to jump and hoot. We were all so embarrassed that we could hardly look at poor old naked Hal there screaming in the brook. We thought he'd lost his marbles, gone clean out of his head, when suddenly, reaching for his privates, he removed a big old crawdad that was anything but dead. Well, I must admit it, we laughed until we cried, and we won't let Hal forget it until the day he dies. He's immortalized in Boy Scout lore as the master of the crawdad's got me in the pants and does it hurt bad, roar.
Oh, I bet he never forgot that, did he?
No, he never forgot, and we never let him forget, but
That's the
that's
worst
okay.
way to catch crawdad.
Yeah. Hal's, I don't have a poem about it, but Hal's the same kid that was playing in a field where he wasn't supposed to be and was bitten by a rattlesnake and
Ooh.
wouldn't tell his parents because he wasn't supposed to be in the field. And they lived 30, 40 minutes from the nearest hospital.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, and so they managed to save him, but it was touch and go for a while because
Yeah, I
yeah,
bet.
so that's got to be strict parents if you don't want to
Yeah, if you're afraid to
let them
tell him you
know.
got bit by a rattlesnake.
Yeah. All right. Now I wrote a book called Boomerang Christmas,
Okay.
and it was really interesting. Uh, it used to be like when somebody was a poet laureate, then they had a responsibility to write some songs about whoever, or some poetry about whoever had kind of what was of interest to them. And I
Okay.
had a lot of people say, well, they just don't like to write directed things. Well, the first Christmas book I wrote was called Christmas Past and Christmas Presents. And it was a lot of stories that I remember from Christmas. And in the course of doing that, I asked Joan, and she had a wonderful Christmas story. So I asked all my brothers, and all my brothers had a wonderful Christmas story. And I put them in the first book, but it was really fun. So I got a hold of the local college and made arrangements to use part of their facility and invited everybody to come out who had a Christmas story to put in this other book called Boomerang Christmas, Stories from You to Me and Back Again. And I would write Christmas stories for everybody. And it turned out great. But it's interesting when you open yourself up to all these stories, what you get. I had a lady that came out that night, and she sat there, and we were going in order, and I would say, your turn. She goes, no. So I thought she was there with someone else. So we did the whole thing, and we got done. And she said, I came out here because I wanted to tell you a story, but it's not a Christmas story. But I heard you talking about this, and I'll tell you a story. So she did. And this is the story she told me. It's called Life's Highway.
Life Highway.
Sometimes life can, oh, and by the way, this lady's name is Carol Downs. This is her story. Sometimes life can hang in the balance of the everyday. We seldom even know the threads are in such disarray. That everything might be different, if not for a single act, that because we did this thing or we didn't, there's now no going back. The threads align in the pattern of assigned and finished work. Well, here's a story of how in every decision, the seed of your future lurks. Years ago, the Sayre, Oklahoma postmaster and his wife were vacationing in the West. A memorable, fun-filled trip, but now to home and hearth, it seemed the ideal quest. So they turned away from sights unseen, headed east, back up old Route 66. In California, they stopped for fuel, expecting they'd be on the road again pretty quick. After all, it was a long, long way to Oklahoma, a grueling 3-day drive. But there at the truck stop, they met a thin young man with hollow, haunted eyes. Clean cut and polite, he seemed to be trying to overcome some personal tragedy. He said he needed to get back to Oklahoma, but he lacked the necessary fee. He said he could help them drive if they would only give him a ride. And being Oklahoma friendly, they said, glad to help. Come on, hop inside. And soon they were on the road for a mostly pleasant and uneventful trip. They bought us meals, a room for him to stay. They dropped him off, and that was it. He was just another of the many friendly people they'd met, and they hoped he'd find relief from his worry and fret. But 2 weeks later, they received a letter from that same young man who said, I have to thank you for changing up my plan. Your kindness and your honesty turned my life around. I'd forgotten there was that much goodness could be found. I'd been living very rough and was feeling caught in desperate straits. And when you gave me the ride, I was planning on being the deadly hand of fate. At the earliest opportunity, I was going to rob and steal and kill. It was born of desperation, but I had the need and I had the will. Until you treated me like your own son. It was the dawn of sanity. It reminded me of better times, restored the hope in me. I can never truly express the difference that your kindness made, but it was like I was born again. It's a debt that can never be paid. I will never forget, and I will try to make things right. And if there's one more thing I need for you to do tonight. And at his behest, they returned to their car, and they searched beneath the seat, and they found hidden there, as promised, the loaded gun he dropped in his retreat.
Oh my gosh.
Is that something?
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. But I mean, there's amazing stories out there when, and if I like that. But, I've got a much longer one called the Ballad of Aaron and Tom. about a lady who saved some people from a grizzly
Oh,
with her mighty horse called Tonk.
mighty horse.
Mighty horse, those kind of things. And I really like that and that process. So that's kind of where my poems come from. Now, I write humor, and a lot of people feel like that is a lesser form of poetry. It's just I don't know. It's not big enough. I love it. What the shortest poem ever written, right? Fleas. Adam had them. Yeah. Hey, how can you do better than that in 3 words? I love it. Well, you know that Ogden Nash was on his deathbed, and this is reported that he did this. He looked up from his deathbed and said, "Either those curtains go or I do."
Mm-hmm. I think I have heard that.
Yeah,
And I've read Ogden Nash. I enjoy his brand of humor.
yeah. To be, and you hope that you can hold it right through to that last moment, because there's a great strength in it. If you can just kind of laugh at it and let it go, it's good. So here's one that I wrote that is it's from I think it's in a book called Cotton Candy Whimsy.
Cotton Candy Whimsy. Okay.
Humpty Dumpty just fell out of sight. Everyone remembers that terrible night when, minding his business alone on the wall, he was startled by horses and he took that bad fall. Well, they tried to put him together again, all the king's men, but they just lacked the training to do it again. So, of course, Humpty sued him. That's the modern way. He collected millions by the time he'd had his say. He said they were negligent for having horses in town and for not posting signs about the danger all around. He berated their training and their lack of medical skill. After all, they were king's men. They should know about spills. Well, he sat in his wheelchair until the verdict was read, and then he jumped up and danced around like a real knucklehead. He was once a good egg, as fresh as any you've ever gotten, but something went wrong. Now Humpty Dumpty is rotten. The state of the world, our approach to things. Anyway,
Yeah.
I enjoy that kind of poetry.
I do too. And it definitely has a place, I think.
Here's
Even
a
if
quick one
it's
called
a moment of brevity, it definitely has
this is called perspective.
perspective.
A frog on a rock sat and he thought about the things that froggies do. Now you might mock that frog on a rock and think that his thoughts are few, but a frog on a rock has many a thought, though not a one about you.
Hurtful.
Yeah, hey, but we always think it's all about us, and I think it's just good to be reminded that
Yeah,
there are elements of the world that really don't care.
they really don't. They don't. I appreciate that though. That gentle reminder that yeah, the frog's not gonna think about you. He's thinking about other things, froggy things.
That's it. Well, I'm looking forward to visiting with everybody at the first Wednesday poetry thing in Tahlequah coming up on April the 1st. And
I'm
hopefully
looking forward to that too. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's downtown at 219 North Muskogee and in the art shop there. And Shelley and Kelly host it and have some snacks and share a lot of poetry, and it'll be fun. Get to do that. Also, I want to mention the next night I'm going to be up in Pryor at the library along with David Jennings, who was featured last month in the Tahlequah, and a couple of his friends, other poet and a very accomplished guitarist. And we're going to do a 2-hour show up there on Thursday, April the 2nd. So anybody that finds himself in that area, we'd love to see you up there.
Absolutely, and I can link both those events when I share this on my socials.
Well, good. Please do. All
Well,
right. Do
I'll
you
let you
have
go now.
anything else? Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I was just going to ask advice for people who want to do poetry but don't know how to start.
I think there's no substitute for just sitting down and starting and being forgiving of yourself. Not the whole world out there is ready to tear you down.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. Why help them? For goodness sakes, have enough confidence to write it, hold on to it, revisit it, and then make a more objective view of it. But when I write something, I write it and I lay it aside. I don't for a few days, and then I come back to it with fresh eyes, because then you're in the critical, oh, I can improve this structure, I can change these lines, whatever. But don't try to do that at the same time. Just get the idea down, get the concept, get it on the page, and trust yourself that that's good, and then see what you can do to reshape it. Don't try to sit down and write a perfect poem. Sit down and write a poem, period. And that counts. That is success, just to write one. And sometimes you write one and you get done and you go, no, and it goes in that big file we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
that everybody has. But sometimes you go, wow, I like that one. And that's a real special moment when it comes out that way and you can hold on to it. But you got to jump in. I mean, I don't
Jump in feet
I don't
first and
know.
see what happens, huh?
Yeah, I don't know any other way to do it. And the main thing, I'm around a lot of people who uh, paint, and they have exactly the same difficulty that we have as poets. It's hard for them to have confidence in, are they what they're doing good enough? Does it measure up? Is their vision? All the same self-limiting things. And what finally does it for them is just having the nerve to do it. Just do it. And one can lead to another. Then you go, oh, well, that one, I can see what I could do better on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And but you don't have anything to go off of unless you take that first step. And so I would, and see, and I encourage people to do that as poets. And I think it's incumbent on us as poets to be the supporting voice. That's why when people do the open mic,
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got a community of people that are supportive of that. Nobody goes, oh, there's none of that. There's like, oh, wow, good story, good thought, and that's important. So that's the next thing. Try to find a supportive community. Go where there are poets who are sharing, and find that confidence to go ahead and step over the threshold, and you'll find that people are going to be pretty welcoming. Shame on them if they're not.
Shame on
The
them if they're
fault,
not, exactly.
yeah, the fault lies with them, not with you.
Yes, that is
All right.
excellent.
When you're ready, I have a poem to close us out called A Poet's Prayer, but I'm not in any
Absolutely.
hurry. So are you ready for that?
Yes, sir.
In the heartbeat of eternity that is mine, let me shine. For the brief moment I walk on this earth, let me prove my worth. From a heart filled with love for those in want, let me pour forth from the font. With eyes that have seen blessings and health, let me see those with less and share the wealth. With hands to help ease life's burdens, let me lighten the load and soothe the hurting. With a mind that knows what's right, give me strength to seek the light. With a life that's been blessed by all things good, let my mind, my hand, my eyes and heart do all the good things they should.
Amen.
A poet's prayer.
I love that. And thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to like us, leave a review, or share us on social media. If you are a poet or you know someone who is, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us or submit your work through our website, which is www.present-poetry.com. Again, that is www.present-poetry.com. We can't wait to hear from you.